Liverpool's appointment of Arne Slot.
If Salah stays or goes, that's a major issue for him. As long as the family from Abu Dhabi are at Man City, they will continue to dominate.
Jim Ratcliffe and what he's bitten off.
I can't help but think he must have gone, what have I done?
Rashford.
If you have 2 years out of 5, that's not a great player. He could be one of the great disappointments in the history of the English game. Hi everyone, welcome to Souness and Simon.
A much better show.
Better Souness and Simon than Simon.
Whatever makes you happy, Greg.
Right. Anyway.
What do you make of Liverpool's appointment of Arne Slot?
I'm going to firmly sit on the fence with this one, Sam. I don't know anything about him.
75% win record in any league is compelling enough, isn't it? Even if it's in a lesser league.
You can only win the league you're in. You can only win the league you're in. But you also have to say at a time when Ajax are the dominant team in Holland.
Fallen away.
They've been the weakest that I can ever remember. Been ordinary. So he comes to our football. I hope he has people around him that can help him. Make a good start, a quick start.
Is it an impossible act to follow? I mean, it's not like it's not like Bill Shankly handing over to Bob Paisley and Bob Paisley handing over to Ronnie Moran or
Joe Fagan.
Joe Fagan, right? It was built in, it was baked in, and there was this culture in there. This is a sea change. Do you fear for Slot because the personality of Jurgen Klopp is so, I wouldn't say omnipotent, but so all-consuming. He seems to have got every aspect of Liverpool. Right?
Jurgen's Liverpool, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's got the big shoes to fill. I think that's a big enough job on its own, but I think, for argument's sake, looking at it from the outside, if Salah stays or goes, that's a major issue for him. If Van Dijk stays or goes, you mentioned Trent Alexander stays or goes. You know, if you're losing your big players, I would say if you lost Van Dijk and Salah in the same window, there's no obvious. They can't sell Van Dijk. They can't, because they do not have anyone that can step up and be anything like as good as he is. That would be a major blow to them. As would losing 25 goals if Salah were to go. So providing they stay, you know, if we were going back to the League Cup final with Chelsea and Liverpool have won that with half a team of kids, you're thinking, blinking heck, how rosy is it for the new manager at Liverpool? These kids, you know, if you only can turn up on a cup final, the experienced players have got, and then that changed because Liverpool showed a weakness I didn't think existed in them when they fell apart towards the end of the season. You know, I've been in a dressing room where you're going for the league and the big players say, right, now is our moment.
We double down, yeah.
Now is our moment. We're going to put the foot to the floor every opportunity. We're going to punish teams, get them out of the way nice and early. And that's what we did. You know, that's what we did year after year after year.
Are you surprised at this?
And they fell apart.
Yeah, are you surprised?
Amazed, not surprised.
Wait,
amazed.
Have you got any thoughts in your mind why it's happened?
Well, it's not the manager's fault. He would have been saying the same things to them that brought them success in the past, and playing a brand of football was really exciting and great to watch. They wouldn't have changed their travel arrangements, they wouldn't have changed their tactics. There's nothing would have changed from the management side. So it's firmly on the players that they fell apart towards the end of the season, in my opinion.
What are they going to have to do, Liverpool? And I don't need a timeline, but just out of curiosity, because I don't know how they bridge the gap between. The question is between Arsenal and City, but I put Arsenal aside for 1 second and look at City. How do they close the gap?
I think I've heard you say this recently. As long as Pep Guardiola is there, City will be dominant.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a statement.
You don't?
I think as long as the family from Abu Dhabi are at Man City, they will continue to dominate.
But they didn't dominate when they had Pellegrini, and they didn't dominate when they had Mancini.
Well, they've not dominated now. They win the 4 leagues. They've not won the European Cup.
But they've dominated domestic football.
That's the caveat. They've not dominated, because if it were domination, they'd be winning the European Cup and the league as we did.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Sure.
So that's total domination.
That was when it was a proper knockout competition.
Yeah. My take on it, Simon, is as long as that family from Abu Dhabi are involved, they will keep finding a way to have money to throw at it. I get the best of the best.
I agree with you, because it'd be ridiculous to dispute that. But I don't think there are many. You don't get many geniuses to the pound, and I don't know who's out there when Guardiola decides. Maybe the timing will be right for Alonso. Maybe Alonso will go on with Bayer Leverkusen, win another league, and they'll go, tell you what, it's not Arteta, it's Alonso. Or maybe they'll get the Source's apprentice and go, you can learn your trade at Arsenal, you can come to Man City.
Someone else might emerge. Someone else may come along in another league outside of England. But what also worries me, recruitment it's not an art. There's a hell of a lot of luck involved in it.
Well, it is an art.
And Liverpool they've been the best in recruitment in terms of what they spent and the return they got for that spend.
Darwin Núñez. Shut up.
Actually, naming one player. I'm talking about
it's a big player. It's one of the biggest spends.
I'm talking about spending 400 and something million as opposed to $1 billion that other clubs have spent.
Yeah, granted.
Right? So
Yeah.
I think
You mean Man United?
I think, and Chelsea.
Currently Chelsea.
And Man City.
Yeah, but Chelsea
Man City.
achieved outcomes.
Yeah.
Their spend may be big, but it's worked.
Yeah. Anyway, and you've got to remember, both Pellegrini and Mancini won the league at Man City before Pep turned up.
But yeah, I agree.
So they were successful.
Yeah, you're now watching. Hold on, because you keep bringing yourself into the conversation about what Liverpool did in the 70s and 80s, right? But they never won 4 Division 1s in a row, and no one's won 4 Premier Leagues in a row. So what we're now seeing
So that's
is a
enough
domination.
about me, as it turns out. As captain, I won 3 leagues back to back. So just in case you'd
we know that.
not done your research.
But
properly.
I know. I didn't need some more research because if I didn't know it, you'd tell me.
And the European Cup, of course.
And the
anyway,
European Cup.
I digress. That's enough about me. Let's talk about me.
No, okay, fantastic.
So going back to Man City. Going back to Man City. Going back to Man City. That's my belief. As long as the
But that wasn't the original question.
people from Abu Dhabi.
So basically, what you're saying is,
And then we got into Liverpool.
you're never going to catch Man City until
Then we
Middle
got
East
into
thing goes to
recruitment. What a concern I have about Liverpool is it had a golden period with Michael Edwards and whoever else.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Jurgen had a say in that. And they have bought some good players. Look at Mo Salah, Van Dijk, Alisson. They have bought some fabulous players. Mm-hmm. It's whether they can continue with that luck and judgment going forward. There is judgment, there is a slice of luck. No manager from Fergie down gets every signing right.
No, but they get the right amount right to be able to tip the balance in their favour. Rashford. I mean, I don't know about Marcus Rashford. So much is made of him and so much is built up of him. But the link now is with Rashford going to PSG. If you're Rashford, would you start? I think he's done. I think that well is polluted. I think that he needs to move on from Man United to try and find some degree of motivation in his game. And you constantly use this example about his performances this season in the Luton game, right? When he just ambles back when Ross Barkley's going past him. Do you think he should go to somewhere like PSG and just take the money?
Listen, he's at Real Madrid. Normal circumstances, you don't leave Man United to go to PSG. Mm-hmm. He's from Manchester. It's his team, but for his improvement, I think he should leave because he's been in the first team for 5 years, and he's had 2 good years.
Yeah, I agree.
So why have you only had 2 good years? You start off, it should be a natural progression, and I understand that strikers, it's not just you score 10 goals here 1 year, should be 15 the next, 20 the next year. I'm not on about just goal scoring, although that does apply.
He's all round play.
He's all round play. He's at it. It looks as if he's an unhappy boy. It looks like he's carrying the weight of the an enormous weight on his shoulders. And these are the greatest years of your life. You should be playing with freedom, enjoying every single minute, turning up for training, being around your teammates, having banter, socialising with them, being successful with them. And at his age, 25, only now should he be a pro. I think he's 25. Only now he should be entering his best years. And if you have 2 years out of 5, that's not a great player. That's an in and out player.
But
and that's not a great player.
Can I ask you a question then on that basis of a great player? Could he have been a great player?
He still could be a great player.
No. Within the culture of Man United that you and I think stinks right now. And I think we think it's stunk for some time. So was any opportunity for him to be a great player hamstrung by the reality of what's happening inside this club?
Oh, listen, there's lots of factors in making.
And he's 26, by the way.
Lots of factors make you a great player.
Yeah.
Athleticism, ability, pace. Maybe the most important one.
He's up here, right? But isn't that engendered in you by the culture that you're part of?
Or it's in you.
And it's enhanced as a result of being.
It can be enhanced, no doubt about it. But it's in you. Now he looks like he's just. This is how I see it. In his face, in his body language, sometimes it's, well, why do I need to bother? They're not good enough, so why do I need to bother? He should be the flag carrier, the standard bearer.
Is that what you think his body language exhibits?
I'm trying to think. Well, his body language isn't great a lot of the time.
No, it's not. I just wondered why you got to the conclusion that because he thinks everyone else isn't up to it.
It's like I'm wasting my time here.
Is that what you think?
That's how I'm trying to think for a 26-year-old young man in the prime of his life, why you wouldn't be the most enthusiastic player on the pitch. To be an example to everyone else.
I'm not trying to get a clickbait from you about what he thinks. I look at it differently. I think that he's not being held to any account. I think the standards that people have put him, the pedestal that put him on, is a false pedestal. He's not a world-class footballer. And I think the culture in Man United is so poor in terms of their outlook towards winning that he's just drifted into sleepwalking into a bad outlook. And I'm not entirely sure that but you're the manager, you would know better than I. I look at it from my non-professional former owner eyes. I look at it and go, it's an attitude that's been allowed to fester in him. And I'm not entirely sure it's whether he thinks he's better than everyone else. I think he's got distractions off the field. And I don't mean all the charity work. I think he's a young man with a lot of disposable income. And I think there's probably stuff off the field, his personal life, that's distracting him.
You've heard me say this before. Everything you've said is correct. You've heard me say this before. At Man United, it is more difficult to be a young starlet if you're at Man United than it is anywhere else. They get far too much acclaim.
Adulation, recognition.
Money, recognition, everything. They get far more at Man United than any other football club. And I think that is the case when I was a player, and it's still the case. And I think I take your points, and I think they're totally true and valid about there's been no leadership from the management to him. If you think of Fergie with Ryan Giggs and the way he
dealt with
and he became an absolute world superstar. And again, you hear me talk about this all the time. Who are the senior players that are saying, right, Marcus, this is the way we do it? He could end up his career. He could be one of the great
disappointments
in the history of the English game.
Yeah.
With all the ability he possesses.
You think that?
Yeah, I think he has everything.
You think he's got a lot, do you?
The only thing you would say missing that clinical finish, although he's had a couple of good years.
Has he got a trick to go past the player besides pace?
He can drop a shoulder and he's got electric pace. I mean, was it 30 goals he got last year? And he's about 7 now.
Significant amount of goals.
That's not. I'm not describing a top player.
Talking about Man United, there's a part of me that's ruminating about Jim Ratcliffe and what he's bitten off, and whether he's regretting what he's bitten off. I don't think he is.
I asked you that.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, you did the other day. I don't think that he is. I think that when you've got guys like Ratcliffe, something that's broken that needs to be fixed is actually more challenging than buying something that's already fixed and all you're doing is polishing it a little bit more. He's got a broken model in Man United, and ultimately the background noise from all the slightly uninformed media is that he's going to ride in and fix every single problem. And that will be a challenge to him. I know you and I spoke about you meeting him 5-6 years ago, and he talked about buying a football club, Fulham, right? Yeah, and he didn't have time to build it into a club because of his age. I'm not sure that's right. What else are you going to do when you're that sort of guy, that sort of thought process, that sort of success, that sort of ambition, and you've now got your hands on Man United, and everyone's going, look at Man United. More people watch Man United losing the game than sometimes watch Man City winning it, right?
When he first started negotiating to buy Man United?
When?
Whenever it was.
Oh, you're not asking a question, you're making a statement, yeah.
Man United have done that. So what he thought he was buying is no longer there, it's here. I can't help but think he must have gone, what have I done? Do you? Yeah, because
I think you misjudged the personality of the bloke then.
No,
you can't get to where he's got to in Graham. You can't. Yeah, why does Warren Buffett still run around at 90 years of age?
But no two humans are the same, Simon. No two humans are the same.
But there are similar characteristics from achievers. You look at managers, the successful managers have got similar characteristics. Look at entrepreneurs,
very successful in his business. Warren Buffett's a completely different, I would suggest, a completely different animal to Jim Ratcliffe.
But they will have similar characteristics, Gray. Yeah, because in order to be a winner, you've got to be dynamic, and you've also got to be determined, and you've also got to see a challenge as an opportunity.
All right, I accept your point. But would he be looking at it this way then, where the Man United I would negotiate to buy on day one is a very different Man United to now that I've actually got a say in what's going on?
Maybe.
How much worse?
Maybe, or he'll see it as an opportunity. I would see it as an opportunity. I would look at it and go, all right. The only way something can bounce is when you hit the bottom, right? That's the only way you can bounce.
Are they at the
I
bottom?
think United, do you not think they are? I mean, Jesus Christ, you've got
How do
people...
you fix it? How long will it take to fix it?
Well, fixing it is one thing. Getting it moving in the right direction is another.
Right. How do you fix it?
Well, you start introducing cultures inside the football club.
Yeah.
You start introducing disciplines. You start putting the right people in the right place to make the right decisions, and then you make them accountable for it.
All right. I'm a supporter of Man United, and I love what Jim Ratcliffe is saying. No longer working from home. No more credit cards for certain people.
No more sloppy standards in the
No more
dressing room. Yeah.
so the dressing room going to be cleaned. How is it helping me put the most important thing right?
Well, no, it's not helping instantaneously, but what it's doing
That's
is
my point. How long will it take?
Well, I think it'll take as long as it takes. It could take 3 years. It could take 4 years. I remember asking Ed Woodward when he wanted to give a private press briefing to me and Jim that I didn't want to be part of because I wasn't interested in listening to the word according to Ed Woodward about the fact that they thought United would win the league in the next 5 years. I think if you get your recruitment right and you get the culture right,
See that?
it's always your words.
Word.
It's obvious, isn't it? It's in every business.
But
If I don't recruit a good FD in a business, I'm going to have a poor finance department.
But Simon, the problem you've got with football, you've got 2 windows a year.
Yeah, to
to
change
buy
your personnel.
players.
Yeah.
Can't do much in the winter window. People will not sell the best players at that point. So the forward planning, I would assume, has started to, because although we've got someone on gardening leave, the chap from Newcastle, I'm sure there are conversations, meetings.
Of course there will be.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
intellectual capital being imparted.
Yeah.
No,
So,
don't worry
so
about
they'll
that.
be making, but you can only do so much with every window, and to exaggerate the problem for them, Man United, when they buy some, pay a premium because they're Man United, and then there's the Premier League premium as well.
But they'll pay it.
And now they've got the major problem. The problem isn't buying them. The problem is not
Convincing
buying
them
them.
to come.
Well, that's another problem,
Yeah.
given where they are right now. Because the big players,
Yeah.
and they must be targeting big players,
They're not in
want
the
to be
Champions League, yeah.
But the biggest problem in all of that is how do I get the ones I've got out the door?
See, I think that in that view, I think he'll take a pill. I think he's prepared to do something, which is basically, I'll put £1 billion into this football club. I tell you what, Martial, not that he's a problem because he's a particular hobby horse for you and I, right? But he's out the door anyway because his contract's up. But those that he doesn't fancy, he'll go, I will pay you.
Explain to
I'll pay you to go.
the millions that are listening to us what taking a pill means. It's a sore one to.
It means that you pay someone to leave. I.e., I owe you a year left on your contract or 2 years in your contract. You want 100 grand a week or 200 grand a week. I owe you 10 million quid. I'm going to give you 15 million to off.
That's
now
not
you
part
go
of the
get another
bill.
contract.
I've paid 50 million for you. I'm getting 25 back, and I'm still paying you to go.
Depends what you think the bigger picture is. If you think that my £1 billion for 29% is worth, I'll get rid of him for 20. I'm going to pay 20 million quid to get rid of to get a technical
He
director
doesn't
in.
have a choice, does he?
He may not.
But ultimately, he doesn't have a choice. He still will have got open these players. The new manager, if there is one, can make them better.
Graham, what he does is something that we don't think has been done in the last 5 years. He goes and recruits a group of senior players that can actually turn these blokes around. Because if you get good senior pros in there, which you talk about, then maybe some of these so-called lost causes will get their asses together and get their heads on and actually be influenced by more positive
Would
things.
he have not thought? Would Man United not have thought getting Varane and Casemiro would be the types we were talking about, coming from a winning mentality at Real Madrid into that dressing room?
But I would have thought that despite your steady Eddie jibe about Casemiro, I would have thought he'd have been a decent influence. It might not be the player that they.
Then you know what? He might not speak much English. I've not heard him interviewed yet, have you?
Well, you influence come on, you can influence people by your actions, can't you?
Yeah, a big
and your
part
training
of it,
regime
big
and your
part of it
disciplines.
is pointing someone out and giving them a volley.
Time will tell what happens with Radcliffe and how much appetite he has for change and whether he thinks he's bought a pup which he hadn't.
See, the danger again. I've been there. I did that as a manager. You're in a race to get there, and that's when you make mistakes.
Yeah.
You want to do it in the shortest possible period of time, and you end up buying players that you think can get you through, and there'll be something better.
But he has he has the ability to look back over the last 10 years and go, I need to do something different. If you do the same things in the same way, you get the same outcome. It's a definition of insanity. If you expect something different, then you're insane, right? We'll see. As sure as day follows night, we see Real Madrid in another Champions League final. Ancelotti, phenomenal manager, right? You met him?
Yeah, I played against him.
Do you like him?
Yeah, I think he's. Listen.
He's a proper football man.
Yeah, he's got a record to die for as a manager, hasn't he? Yeah, I can remember playing against him when I was in Italy. He'd be a young central midfield player, and I was an old boy. His management style would appear to be non-confrontational.
Even though he's from a generation of managers that would have come from a period of time where confrontation was part of it.
I've not been in the dressing room with him, Simon, so I don't know, but I'm assuming this, the way he interviews.
Yeah. And that interview that we saw with Jude Bellingham the other day, when Jude Bellingham talked about him nonchalantly strolling around the dressing room, yawning and saying, "Are you a bit tired, boss?" And he said, "Well, go out and entertain me."
Brilliant.
Yeah.
He's obviously got charm. He's obviously got a way with players that works. I mean, listen, you know what my take on football management is? You got no chances, you got top players. Well, wherever he's been, other than Everton, he's had top players. And no surprise that it was a difficult job for him at Everton. And then that was a difficult choice for him to make, wasn't it, when Real Madrid came calling again to stay on Merseyside?
Well, wasn't that difficult? He was out the door quicker than a quick thing from Quickland, wasn't he?
What football person wouldn't?
No, granted. Did you think he kind of went out in vogue a little bit, didn't he? Because he went from managing big clubs to. I mean, do you think Napoli's a big club? You played in Italy. Is it a really big club?
Yeah. It's extreme. Yeah, it's a bit like Newcastle, I suppose. That'd be the best sort of example I could give, where it's just the one team in the city and they're
rabid
mad
fan base.
Like,
yeah.
So I understand why he'd take that job. He had PSG as well, didn't he?
Yeah. It just seemed to me that he slightly, when he landed at Everton, I always felt that was a very naive fit. I think he went to Everton because they were prepared to pay him more money than Arsenal might have been prepared to pay him at the time, rather than make it a footballing decision.
Were they in for him at the time, Arsenal?
Yeah, I think they both
were. It's a strange choice.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately Everton, my view and my take on the time was that it was a strange fit. And I remember talking to Frank Arneson, who looked at it, I'm not sure you're going to get the best version of Carlo Ancelotti at Everton. And whilst they were better, I'm not entirely sure that Everton came out of that in the way that they would like to have done, because off he went to Real Madrid.
Yeah, I mean, that comes on, he's under the Everton. Do you know, I think I'm right in saying he's got a helicopter pilot's licence.
What did he get it off Michael Owen?
He didn't fly his own helicopter.
Did he not? But I thought he did.
He owned his own helicopter, but
he had a licence, didn't he? Because he was telling me he did.
No, not to my knowledge. I've been in that helicopter with him, and he was certainly nowhere near the front of it.
Right. Okay.
No, but Ancelotti, top man, got a record that you can't deny it. He's done the business and won the biggest trophies.
And everybody that I've spoken to, I mean, I spoke to John Terry about his experiences with Ancelotti at Chelsea, and I don't think anyone really has come away with anything other than being
a really nice guy,
impressed, and knew where they stood with him, but also a very solid guy and a nice guy, and a decent guy.
Yeah, we've touched on this before. When you have to be yourself as a manager, you can't come across as something you're not, because that mask will slip.
People read between the lines, yeah.
That mask will slip. So I think what you see with Ancelotti is what you get, and it's consistent. And he obviously he's been around big football players, big football clubs. He's garnered a lot of information and knowledge, and how he transfers that knowledge is obviously the players find it attractive. And he's been super successful.
Because you and I talked somewhere else about the two component parts of what takes to be successful in management, or in any kind of management role in life. We debated between fear and respect. I think we both alighted upon fear because it slightly lasts longer, doesn't it?
I think in our generation...
I'm a lot younger than you. Don't give me our generation.
Both our generations, does that work for you?
That's fair enough.
Both our generations, we would say fear is a lasting thing, where... but I'm not sure if that's the way to... I'm not sure. I know that's not the way to manage anymore.
But isn't it fear of consequence rather than fear? I mean, Ferguson, the idea of Ferguson and a hairdryer concentrated people's minds, whereas Guardiola's the fear of you don't get in the side. It's all fear, isn't it?
When I was
I'm going to back myself. I don't have to you and bite you. I'm just going to take you out of the team.
Exactly, and that was the fear I had as a player at Liverpool. I'm captain of Liverpool, big player. But I knew if I had 2 or 3 bad games, they'd be looking at me very closely and maybe parking me for a bit. So that fear is there, and you didn't want to come out of the team. A, because, the personal pride.
And B, you might not get back in again.
Yeah, the fear of not getting back in.
Yeah.
So that certainly kept me on my toes and all my teammates at that.
But it would have been even more...
Does that exist today?
But it'd been even more prevalent in your time with one substitute, wouldn't it? Because if you don't get in, you're not getting back in the 16, you're getting back in the 12.
Yeah.
And that means you got a lot... But although
I can remember
would have been smaller
getting
squads, wouldn't
changed in match day, and there'd been a midweek international that week, and there's a sub getting changed, 11 of us getting changed, and there's 4 or 5 guys dressed in their suits not getting changed. They all played international football that week for Ireland, Wales, Scotland, England, whoever. And you're thinking, that just looking at that was a motivation. So Carlo Ancelotti will probably have Mbappe again next year. Did you see his goodbye video from PSG?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately people are making a 4-act play out of it, aren't they? Because he's talked about the 7 years that he's given to the football club and how much you either love or don't love PSG, and he happened to love it. But he didn't mention anything about the sporting director. He didn't mention anything about Nasser Al-Khelaifi, my friend. Who cares? I mean, he's a remarkably talented footballer. He's leaving PSG. I mean, I remember sitting in the car, Gray, with his agent in Qatar. And you and I both know the scale of football. We both know the kind of dough that people are getting and the quantums of it now. But even I was gobsmacked with what he was telling me he was getting at PSG. It's preposterous. I know that players make the game, but the players don't survive without the clubs, so the clubs need to be sensible in what they're doing. I don't know what he'll do at Madrid. I don't think he'll make them weaker, that's for sure. But he is a handful, and everything that goes with him. If you look at some of the nonsense that you're led to believe about Mbappe and the way he will play and what he won't do and how he'll play for the national side and all this sort of stuff. But Ancelotti seems to me to have the perfect temperament to be able to deal with that. Just that water for ducks back.
But I think as much as Ancelotti has,
well, he must want him.
That just being a Real Madrid player and all the greats that have been there before might put some manners on him. The Qatar World Cup, I sat and had a cup of coffee with David Dean and Arsene Wenger, and we were talking about Mbappe, and he just signed a new deal. And when they told me, when I asked
the numbers,
Arsene to repeat the numbers, because I didn't know that can't be right.
Yeah, it's astronomical.
And it was like, net.
Yeah.
No, it can't be.
Yeah.
And you know what my immediate thought was? He now becomes unmanageable. When someone gets that kind of money, who are they listening to? And that was my take.
But isn't that? I mean, once you, great. I mean, even if the numbers he was getting was £2 or £3 million a week net, right? Let's have it right.
2 or 3.
I know it's preposterous to some extent, but people are prepared to pay it. But once you get into a territory, you're getting paid 200-300 grand a week. You're getting what I would consider to be F-off money, which means you can tell everybody to F off if you want to.
That's not F-off money.
Well, 300 grand a week, 15 million, 16 million pounds. No, this is beyond that. This is beyond that. But he's chosen to go to Madrid. And I quite frankly, I make Nasser Al-Khelaifi right for some of the things he did last summer.
Well, would you think he's become unmanageable?
Depends if he.
I do. I think that degree of money, that particular club where he's all powerful, and that's
he won't be all powerful at Madrid.
And that's my point. That might put some manners on him.
He won't be. But also, if you understand what Madrid have done, they've reduced his salary. He's still going to be miles above everybody else, right? He's still going to get into the territory of 25, 30, 40 million pound a year. But he's not going to be in the territory that it was at PSG, because Real Madrid is a proper legacy football club, and PSG is a big club in France.
Never played for Real Madrid, but it's again a bit like Liverpool. You walk in there, you're very much aware of the history, you're very much aware of their achievements, very much aware of the great players that have been there before you, and Real Madrid are the greatest of the great.
Well, it's like you must walk into something like Dead Poets Society, right? And you can hear all the whispering noises of the people that have gone before, right? All the great players, Di Stefano and God knows what, Puskas and whoever else played for Madrid.
I think for him to go to Real Madrid was his only chance of him improving even more.
Right.
Because if he pushed there, they won't be. I would imagine he was beyond criticism in the last few years at PSG. From because he was media or the public, where that will not be the case.
I think he did get a fair bit of criticism. I think people didn't like his attitude, because there was too much of the prima donna going about him. And I think some of the Parisian crowd turned a little bit against him last year. And I think Nasser tried to play all ends against the middle.
How will your mate Nasser deal with this?
I think he's dealt with it. I think he's processed it. I think last year...
And moved on.
I think he's moved on. I think, with due respect to what he may or may not have been paying him as a wage, that falls out of that kind of guy's pocket on the way to the game with the wealth that Nasser Al-Khelaifi's got. So I think they get on with it. I don't think he liked the attitude. And I think he said it last summer. You're not going to do as you want, when you want, how you want. That's it for... I'm going to finish the show, despite the fact he introduced
it's my show this week.
That's it. That's us finished. We'll see you next time.